Hi, I'm Yasmin Owusu, and this is my producer, Charlie Kesenek.
But I'm your husband, and you're using all my stuff right now. What are you talking about?
So anyway, I've been looking for a one-stop shop podcast for wellness, amateur sociology, psychology, pop culture, and whatever else sparks my interest. So I created one. We are limited to no lanes. We hit the gas and get into it. This is Peaked. Press play. Hi, welcome to Peaked Podcast. We are back for another week of Peaked. Is that my catchphrase now? Another week of Peaked. Anyway, I'll cut that out pretty quickly. I am a little bit incensed right now because I'm living in Austin, as you know, if you've been listening. If not, it's true. I moved here from New York City about 4.5 years ago. And it is spring already and winter never happened. And listen, I moved here because I wanted more warm weather. I mean, among other reasons, obviously. But a huge reason was coming from the Northeast. You know, I have family in Boston. And then also, I was living in New York for 15 years. So much of the year is cold weather. And I'm not a cold weather person. I grew up mostly in East Africa, a little bit in Rome. I'm a warm weather girly all the way. You know, dry heat, humid, tropical, I don't care. I prefer it. I do not like being cold. I do not like being stuck inside. I'm very outdoorsy. So there are reasons why I chose a climate such as this. I even like extreme heat, honestly. I like to bake myself. I like to get as much melanin, get as dark as possible every summer. The whole thing. I love the beach. I mean, the beach isn't particularly close if I'm being really honest here, but either way. However, I do like a little bit of texture temperature climate wise. The fact that winter never came and the little glimpse we got happened between late December. And I mean late. I mean, it was still warm when Charlie's parents, producer husband Charlie's parents and his sister were visiting. For the 5 days his sister was there, 5-ish, I want to say, it was warm the whole time. She didn't get any winter weather in Austin. We were sitting outside. We were eating our breakfast tacos on a deck. And then for the last 2 days that his parents were there, then it was a little bit chilly. And they were here, their last day here was New Year's Eve, or they left on New Year's Eve or whatever, the day before that. So that is super late December that we got any winter weather at all. And then now it's February, the middle of February, and it's over. And it's been over for I don't know, a weekish. So we basically got a grand total of 3 weeks of not consecutive winter weather, by the way. Many, many days during this 3-week period upticked. We got a little bit of a freeze. Yes, we got some snow on the ground. Yes, we had one day where we were stuck in the house because of ice. Not that ice, my God. But that could be around the corner too. I mean, actual literal, frozen water. And now we're just in spring, headed. I mean, according to every native Austinite, it's not going to go back. We're not going to get winter weather once this happens. We're going straight into wildflowers, which I love that part. And then snake season. And then the 100 degrees for a month straight where the ground cracks apart from not having no moisture at all. So I'm bracing myself for the fact that I did not get that break of hot weather before we're just plummeting right into it again. But you know what? We make our choices, and I still would not trade my lot for everyone digging out their cars and whatever goes on in the rest of the country. Anyway, we'll move on. I mean, it's our right as hot-blooded Americans to complain about our champagne problems, even when we have actual problems. And that's what I'm doing. And, I'm here to yap as always. But, I will move on from that. Imagine if I talked about that the entire episode. On to, speaking about the holiday season, not because of a New Year's resolution and not because of a dry January, whatever. I did decide to cut alcohol out of my life late last year. So, I mean, really late. I want to say it was it was exactly December 22nd. I'm coming up on 2 months now of no alcohol and no anything. I mean, coffee is the hardest substance I'm on right now. And many reasons for this. I mean, I think a lot of them just should be pretty apparent. I mean, there's nothing inherently good for you or helpful about alcohol, as fun as it can be, right? And I had it's hard to explain my relationship with alcohol, I think probably a lot of people would relate to it. I mean, I definitely drank often, but I didn't necessarily have any really crazy consequences. I would say that I was someone who most days had a drink or a couple of drinks, like whether in the house I had a couple of, glass of wine or a couple of beers or like, a martini at the end of my day. That was like most days. And then I would take these little breaks if I was just feeling especially tired from it or whatever. And I've taken a month off here, a month off there, you name it. And then I would also have these like binge days with my friends, like probably 2 to 3 times a month. I would just like really go ham with my friends. It's some establishment that had like frozen margaritas or whatever, some martini special. So that was kind of like the flow. So if you think about that, of like, I'm drinking most days and then actually drinking really heavily 3 times a month, it's not nothing, especially when you're 43 years old. And I started to feel that like catching up with me, like the fallout from it just physically started to be more prolonged. Like, whereas like in my 20s and 30s, especially in my 20s, if I went out and like really went for it, I would maybe feel a little bit under the weather that morning. By that afternoon, I'm like, what we drinking? You know what I mean? So it became kind of where I'd have like 2 days of feeling kind of under the weather from it and just a little less motivated. And it just made everything just a little bit harder to manage. And I was thinking going into the holidays that, I'm going to be hosting 3 people in our house and I want to feed them well. I want to take care of everybody. I want everyone to have a really great time. And I want to just have the most positive, like, wherewithal that I can have, right? Because I love these people and I want to enjoy them, and I don't want to be in any kind of cranky like cycle of just hungoverness and crashing and disorganization. The way that you can be if you're like a little bit under the weather, how maybe you forget to start something and then you're doing it in a rush and that puts you in a mood. So I wanted to have such a stable and just like a stable, even vibe. And it was really kind of that made me think I can do all this way better and just be better at everything I'm doing and be so much more present if I'm not kind of working with the crashes and the highs and the lows of what drinking can do. And I have had visits from friends where we've been drinking, and a lot of my friends aren't even as heavy drinkers as I am. So like, let's say that it's my idea. I'm not putting it on them, but like we're going out and whatever. And I have found myself after they leave just feeling like I wasn't as present as I wanted to be. And like, maybe I was like kind of tired and cranky and like not as into things as sometimes I wanted to be. And I definitely didn't want to be that way for this visit because I have missed his family since we moved out here to Texas, and they're still in Massachusetts. And I've never actually spent a prolonged like 7 days in a row with them. I think we've had like 3-day trips here and like, 4 days there. But this was the longest we're going to spend together. I just wanted to really like kind of soak it up and just not have this interference, right? Plus the feeling like maybe I'm not weathering the storm of drinking as much as I used to, as well as I used to when I was younger. So these are some reasons. And then also, I've talked about it a bit on this podcast. I was in a calorie deficit for 3 months, trying to, drop some stubborn weight. And it's definitely not helpful when you're consuming, fives of hundreds of calories in liquids that has no nutritional value. So I did find myself wanting to make more space for food calories and less for that. And that was really helpful to the idea of like wanting to cut that out. All these reasons. And, a huge overarching thing. Is it overarching or arching? Someone please tell me. If you see this, just write me in the comments on YouTube or something. But there's this kind of like heading of things that made me kind of want to get this wrapped up, which is that it seems like my drinking, even though nothing really catastrophic or cataclysmic ever happened with it. Like I've never lost a job because I'm drinking. I've never lost a friend. I've never like been so humiliated. I've never been on the side of the road. Nothing like that. I would say overall, as a person who drank frequently and sometimes heavily, not a whole lot of consequences. But see, that was maybe a bit the problem. So it's escalated over my life in these kind of chunks, these increments in like, 5 years, it's like this much higher. And then the 5 years, it's this much higher. So when I was in high school, for example, we would just go out. Like I lived in Uganda. So I lived in the third world and there weren't the restrictions there are in like the US or like the UK for like underage drinking. So like we were allowed to go to bars and all of our families, these expat families, whatever, were kind of chill with us, like, having a couple drinks. Like, I mean, this is like after 16 years old. I'm not talking about I'm like 10 years old going out, but we would just like, I would say in the week, it was just one day a week, maybe on a Thursday. There was like this marine house where we'd like go play pool and sometimes they'd show a movie or like we just go to like a sports bar and have a couple of beers. It was usually pretty mellow and we were all home by like 10:30, 11, right? And then on Fridays and Saturdays, we would like get into it. We'd like go to the club. Like we had these clubs we would go to in Uganda. One was called Silk. And that was like really dancing, drinking the disgusting things that you drink when you're in your teens. Like, so just Malibu, everything that like tastes really syrupy, disgusting, gives you a headache, it makes you throw up. That's what we were drinking. But it was 2 days a week. And it's not like I was like during the week when I was like by myself in my house, I was ever drinking. No. So this was just very a social thing for me. And then, I would go to college and it was this was a big regression because here I am just able to do whatever I want in the third world. And then now I moved to the United States, where I'm half from. And I'm living in Seattle and like, I'm not allowed to drink legally at all. Like I'm, paying, unhoused people outside of a liquor store to like buy me like disgusting natty ices because that's what I could afford as a college student. So huge demotion in life, in my drinking life, but we made it happen. And I would say still that was kind of a weekend warrior thing and always social, but heavy for sure. Like we did the college America thing. We went for it. I went to frat parties. I mean, you name it. I did it. Never been a huge weed person, but I can get into it. It's not like a hugely social thing for me. It's just kind of I can be a little slow and nonverbal and spazzy with it. So it's not necessarily like I want to hang out with my friends and like really connect with them. So I'm going to smoke weed and not talk at all. So like it hasn't really been something that I've been like super social about. But have I on vacation wanted to like giggle a little and eat something and take a gummy? Sure. But it's never anything I've done regularly. I would say in a year, I probably consume a marijuana product once or twice, usually in summer. So that's that. And then so that you see how it was like weekend warrior. And now it's like I'm in college and we're having beers and whatever. And then when I moved to New York City in my early 20s, that's when I started to like go out a lot. And I'm working this like low responsibility jobs, these like cafe, like barista, like whatever, cupcake store. And, all my friends are doing the same thing. So like we can just go out whenever we want. And I was very much in this like Lower East Side, Williamsburg, like hipster bullshit, like land, right? Misshapes and whatever, all that like legendary indie sleaze, as they call it these days, hipsters, as we called it those days, all that stuff. And I was going out, I want to say like 6 days a week. Like we took Saturdays off because, I've said this ad nauseum. Saturdays were like, amateur hour, bridge and tunnel, whatever you want to call it. I was bridge and tunnel. I mean, I was coming from Brooklyn and sometimes Red Hook. So like that's literally a tunnel and a bridge. But here I am saying that. Either way, it was a day where we considered people who were not like necessarily in this subculture would go out to the places we would go out and it wouldn't feel like our normal vibe and they wouldn't play our normal music. And so we just like kind of usually skip Saturdays. So that means I was going out the other 6 days a week, right? And obviously this environment is like heavy drinking. Like I was pounding gin and tonics, vodka cranberries, whatever was cheap, whatever was an open bar. I'm not over here drinking top shelf in my 20s working at a cafe. So that was like escalated, but it was still just fully social. Like I was not coming home and drinking anything, right? I was just, going out. But that's a lot of days a week to be consuming alcohol, period. So then when that party phase slowed down, now I'm used to drinking that much, right? So now it becomes more of a thing where I have a couple beers and I watch my TV shows. Anyway, I'm getting long-winded about this, but I'm just kind of trying to help you appreciate how it didn't suddenly become where I'm like a daily drinker. It's like every few years, it just sort of escalates, and it doesn't escalate quickly. It's like gradually and then all of a sudden. And the next thing you know, you're a person who drinks most days, right? But then I was thinking about how, well, what's the next escalation? Because when you're drinking almost every day and binging twice a month, what's next? Binging every day. So like, I just didn't even want to find out. I'm like, you know what? 40, halfway through life, let's call it. Before anything really tragic or it becomes this like sad story of like drinking or whatever. And again, I really want to emphasize nothing bad happened. There was no like mitigating event or no cataclysmic event that made me want to quit. It was the fact that I don't want that to happen, I guess. And also like you start thinking about weird things like your organs as you get to be like 43 years old. It's like, how long have I been giving my liver a beating, you know? So whatever, we made that decision. And, largely, I don't know how strong my physical addiction was. And I know that there is just like you change your dopamine receptors. Like I'm educated about all of that stuff. And I do understand that like the effect that has over time, like on your brain and your dopamine receptors and your hormones and all of that. But I quit smoking cold turkey too. And I have taken these prolonged breaks enough to know that the physical addiction, it's not really there. My hands are not shaking. I don't have any of that stuff going on. So not on any program. I just was like, well, we're not doing it anymore. And I just stopped identifying as someone who drinks and I just stopped drinking. And, I don't want to say it was easy, but I am someone who, when I make a decision, I make a decision. And you'll find me fully not doing that until I'm ready to do that. Like when I was never that person who's like, I'm trying to quit smoking. I'm trying to quit smoking. No, I was like, I'm going to smoke forever. I'm enjoying my whatever I'm smoking. Don't ask me to not smoke. And then one day I was like, I think I'm done. And then I was done and never smoked again. Just decided to be done and was done. And that's kind of how I roll. And that's what I'm doing. And, who knows? Maybe I'll be speaking to camera about how now I'm in AA in like whatever, 2 months. But right now, so far, so good. The only time that I do feel like it's a little rough, and this is more what I wanted to talk about than quitting drinking overall. I don't necessarily think everyone needs to do this. If you're someone who feels like you can regulate better than I could, then go for it. There's many people that I know who even were people that I would drink with who like I knew in their regular daily life, they weren't having a couple drinks most days. And when we did drink, they were really able to stop at like 2. Once I hit the on button with like drinking out with people, there's no off button. Like it's just like go until we all decide to go home. Right. So like there's that. So I think if you are someone who can drink unproblematically and without escalating, then have at it. So this is not a PSA on like not drinking. I will say it has not been difficult at all for me to stop my drinking at home habit. Very easy to transfer to having a tea and like having a little cookie. I mean, it's half the calories than what I was consuming in alcohol at night, right? So that has been fairly easy. I think where I'm struggling a little, if I even want to call it that, I don't even know if I want to say I'm struggling. I want to call it more that I'm trying to find how it works. Like I'm trying to find what fits in a program is just in socializing. I think that a lot of us at my age or my friends who we're all kind of in a same life period, even if they are different ages than me, there's a reason we've kind of gravitated towards each other. We're very much just living our lives throughout the week that are really full and we're not hanging out every day, I think is what I'm trying to say. The way that you kind of can when you're in your 20s, you have your besties and you're always going over to each other's houses. Like we're not really doing that. We're maybe hanging out like 2-3 times tops a month. And so when we do, I think we have a lot to catch up on. We feel like we want to kind of cut loose and decompress together. And like alcohol can be really conducive to that. And I think that's why we've chosen that as an activity so much. It's an activity. So when you go out with your friends, like to the bar, to the restaurant or whatever, like part of the activity has been to kind of just like lower those inhibitions, use this crutch, whatever, this thing, and just get goofy and loose and really just kind of, I don't know, trauma dump on each other or whatever we feel like doing at the time. Like just really freaking go for it. Like cut loose. And because that's been our comfort zone of how we hang out, I am finding myself trying to figure out where I can fit in all of that. And it hasn't been that long. It's been a couple of months. And so I just told you what my schedule of hang out with my friends is. A couple of months, that would have only been like 3 to 5 hangs, right? And so I haven't hung out with people that much. I've been to a couple of parties where I didn't know that many people, like around the holidays, winter, whatever. And then I've hung out with my close friends a couple of times. And of course, I love them. And so it was fine. And we had plenty to chat about. And we talked about our holidays and whatever. I did find myself getting sleepy because I guess when I'm not out drinking, that is usually what happens around 10:30, 11 o'clock is I just kind of turn in, right? And I think when I'm going out, I had been drinking myself stimulated to stay out. And we would usually hang out for 4 to 5 hours between like whatever, 7 and late at night. And now that I'm not drinking, I'm like, I don't want to pound caffeine in the middle of the night to like get all hyped up. And also, that's not the best energy, Like I thought maybe I'll be the person who's like, I'm gonna have coffee and just be like talking a mile a minute. But it's that energy is too on edge. Like I feel like it's not the same, like goofy, slow, funny, loose energy that like I guess we were bouncing off of each other drinking. So like it's interesting. It's not a problem. It's just, it's a new normal and I'm going to figure out how to navigate it. I'm going to figure out how to navigate the sleepiness and how am I going to bring myself back up for these night hangs? Or maybe how am I going to like tailor some hangouts that are an activity that I participate in since I don't participate in this kind of spirit activity anymore. Well, maybe I call people for hikes more where we can just catch up while we're like walking. I don't know. Have a game night. I honestly, this is what I'm trying to figure out. Like how do I pivot this feeling of just like loose connection, decompression, catching up to something else or just be in it with people and find a way to match vibes. Their vibes are still immaculate. I think I'm the bad smell in the room where I'm just like more tense and just like, yeah. Like I said, I have a pretty good relationship with like psychedelics. I've never escalated in that. No matter like even if I've had a summer where it's like a few more times because they've been offered to me, it's never been something that I've like kept up with on a regular basis. So, here and there I might throw in a, CBD with a little THC drink or what have you. But I do think for the early days of me getting rid of the alcohol thing, I definitely did not want to add anything else altering and have any kind of transference or I just wanted to just raw doggy life for a little bit. And so I'm in that. And so, yeah, the last time that I hung out was at Charlie's show. And it was a couple of days ago and it was great. Like my friends came and everybody else had their drinks and I had a coffee, but we had this activity of like watching his concert essentially. And like that was like most of the hang was like watching him play music. And then we like, chat a little bit before and like between sets and then a little bit after. And like, my friend brought her kids and I always love when she brings her kids out. So like it was just lovely and great. I do find myself, it's a moment of adjustment though. It's a moment of adjustment because there's this icebreaker of like after you've had your first or second drink, depending on who you are, where everyone just kind of like their guard feels let down. And these are friends I've had for a long time, but somehow still there's this like ice breaking moment. And when you are just kind of conspicuously, suddenly sober, that moment isn't coming. You have to basically have it happen within yourself. So I'm just trying to remember that I used to do that as a kid all the time. You are introduced to some other kid and it's a little like awkward. I mean, some people are just like massively outgoing or extroverted, but I'm more of an ambivert. So for me, there's always like this like little moment of like tentativeness and awkwardness. And then the next thing you know, you're running around screaming together and you're besties, right? So I'm just trying to like find that release just naturally. I mean, I know that all the things that are released in your body from alcohol are naturally present there. We have serotonin, we have dopamine, we have all of that stuff. So I just need to figure out how to access it at the right times and how to keep energy up. That one's a big one. I don't necessarily have the stamina. Maybe if I had quit when I was in my early 20s or whatever, I just was able to stay up late and, have all this energy. But like I do be getting sleepy. But then again, did alcohol not make me kind of sleepy and slow and sometimes like a little bit less responsive and present? Sure. Overall, the pros are going to outweigh the cons, and I know this, and it's just a moment of adjustment. And I figured I'd share in case anyone else is in the same place or is just trying to like navigate any kind of new normal or new thing they're like negotiating, especially when culture is so opposed to what you're doing. Like Austin is a big, drinking culture city, and I think people they do it well and pretty healthily overall. I mean, there's a lot of run clubs and everybody's like, takes hikes. Everyone has dogs and everyone walks around and they have their drinks and they're good. Um, and I love that for everybody, I guess, except for me. And I've tried every negotiating tactic to moderate. Trust me, I've done every little program in my head of like, so if you do have a drink this day, and that means you don't for the next 3 days. And if you have three, then I've done every bartering system possible. And it always seems to, hang out in a better space for a while, but then kind of just slowly backtrack into this like very regularly having 2 drinks every night. And yeah, I mean, mentioned all the myriad reasons why I decided to stop, but I think the main reason was just feeling like a diminished version of myself too often. And if you feel that way, yeah, think about it. Think about it because I did think of alcohol as being something that took the edge off and like relaxed my stress, but I realized that it was causing a lot of it. It was solving a problem it was causing, essentially. A lot of the anxiety and stress and like, bad self-talk or whatever, it's caused by the hormonal crashes that drinking causes. And then you think, well, this will help that, right? And I do find myself to be so much more just like stable in mood, stable in demeanor, and I have more wherewithal and I have just more energy overall. I'm not one of these people who's going to tell you, I just feel great. I wake up and I'm like ready to. No, I'm not superhumanly tripping through the daisies, like glowing from the inside out. Nothing crazy. I'm just not coming up from a hole, like essentially, which like drinking was putting me in a hole a lot, a hole of energy, a hole of mood, just like a pit that I had to manage and climb out of. And it made everything harder to organize. Like just I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. Like I wasn't letting anything slide. So I was still working out as much. I was still sticking to this crazy deficit diet, 1,200 calories a day. So imagine I was like keeping that up. I was keeping everything up. I was keeping the podcast up. I was keeping, at whatever points I was keeping it up. I was keeping my restaurant job, you name it, taking care of my house. But I was doing it like a wounded soldier, like extremely tired, extremely like feeling like I had the drunk flu half the time. And from very little alcohol. Like it's not even that it was when I went like ham. It wasn't just from that. I could literally just have had like 2 glasses of wine with a pasta dinner that I made for Charlie. And the next day I'm like, I'm going through it. Like I'm in the trenches. And it just becomes like, wait, this is supposed to be fun. So like, if it's not fun, then like, what are we doing here? Like it's supposed to be light. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be kind of luxurious. It's supposed to be whatever, and it wasn't being any of those things. Even at the highest level, if I'm having the fanciest cocktail, if I'm having the nicest wine, the effect was not luxurious. No matter how luxurious the product supposedly was being marketed as, the effect was me being like a rat, like scurrying around in my room, like eating things dysregulated and like, not all my tasks being a lot harder and just feeling perpetually overwhelmed. So it just wasn't worth it anymore. And I think I would like to hear it talked about a little bit more, how people who maybe have what you could consider escalating and problematic drinking, but not not in the classic way that people would, it's not like an alcoholic, not that they don't keep up their responsibilities or, they're not getting kicked out of their prop. You know what I mean? Like they're not having this deterioration of their life the way that some people are, at least yet. Not enough consequences. And it can be difficult to identify that you need to cut it out when you're in that spot. It certainly was for me. I probably should have done it earlier. And seeing how much easier things are, emphasizing that I am not now, a yogi, nirvana reached superhero of energy and strength. No, I'm just not in the trenches the way that I was. And I want to be realistic about that too. It was funny when I quit drinking coffee a while ago because it was giving me anxiety. So I just decided to pump the brakes on it. It was a similar thing where I never was like, oh my God, I feel amazing without coffee. Like I sort of realized from that you just have these natural kind of peaks and plummets that just happen throughout your day anyway. And so when you think, oh, I'm so like down in the dump, I'm so tired and I just need this coffee to like pick me up. It's like your body does pick up. It has its own rhythms. It has its own kind of natural rhythm essentially. And I think it's a longer haul, but I'm discovering that with alcohol too. I can be as loose, as goofy, as tense, as whatever. These things just, they occur within me anyway. It's just hard when there's an exact vibe and mood you want to be in to be social. And it's not so easy for me to access that because I have had this crutch and this kind of fast track to accessing it. But I'm just going to take it on as a challenge and something really interesting. Like, can I just basically push a button in my head and just be in that vibe? Can I just feed off the vibe of the people around me? Can that just be a thing? Can I just be okay not being in the exact same vibe as everybody else? Like, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I do know that it is going to be my reality because it's a decision I've made. So maybe watch this space. And if you're kind of in a similar one, yeah, reach out, give me some tips. Let me know how you made it work. Yeah, and just anything that made you feel like you're not in you're not present for an activity you're not participating in. You know what I mean? Like that's maybe a feeling I'm having around socializing right now. It's like we're all here for this activity and I'm not participating in this activity, so I'm just here. You know what I mean? And of course I have my moments of being able to connect and chatting and doing all that, and that's great. But there is that element, and I want to be honest with myself, and I guess y'all about that. So if you have found ways to not frame it that way or to find activities that make it not feel that way, that keep the other people that you enjoy happy as well, y'all let me know and I will do the same. I mean, this is an alive and open space. It's only 2 months, which is also largely why I'm not super into talking about like being sober and sobriety. Because I mean, how can you really be a voice in that when you're 2 months in? I mean, a lot of people just call me a dry drunk at this point, right? I certainly don't think I have any expertise to impart, and I'm not even in a program, so of any kind, and I don't plan to be. So maybe that's not what I'm trying to discuss so much. It's just like in a culture where alcohol is like the hearth everyone gathers around to socialize. If you're not partaking in the alcohol, how are you existing in that space? I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but how are you showing up and existing in that space? And that's what I'm exploring. And that's where I'm at so far with it. And here we go. Anyway, I'll see y'all next time. And thank you for joining me. And yeah,